What's up, deckheads? Welcome back to MTG with me. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce to you, if you're not aware, they added a small subset or small set of cards to Standard. It's 50 cards. It is called March of the Machine, The Aftermath. And I'll go ahead and just show you what those are. These are standard legal cards, so you will see them while you're grinding. And you may be like, what is that? Like, came out of nowhere. That's what they are. I'll obviously point out the most important ones, but we'll just kind of go through card by card and show you what the additions are. So, a little bit of a tribal anthem here with Coppercoat Vanguard. That's +1/+0 and has Ward 1 for all of the humans you control. So, this is popular in a lot of the Azurius soldier decks that you've seen. A lot of people are kind of turning it a little bit to put this in there because it's a 2-drop. A lot of things can fetch for it. And a 2-drop 2/2 that does that is pretty strong. You have this and another one out. Now they're 3/2s and everything's got Ward 2, which is pretty nuts. So keep that in mind. You probably will see that out there. That'll encourage you to use board wipes for sure, and there are plenty of those out there. It's also good and a lot of Selesnya decks. Not the Selesnya enchantment one, but there are still plenty of those out there. Defecation, I think is how you say that. Enters the battlefield, choose a Planeswalker type. Planeswalkers you control of the chosen type have hexproof. As long as you control a creature, damage would be dealt to a Planeswalker you control of the chosen type would result in all the counters removed. It just removes it down to 1. So it's a good way to kind of keep your Planeswalkers out there. Haven't seen anybody use this card. Not one. Alright, next one is Metropolis Reformer. Plenty of people are using this card. It's a 3-drop, 2/3 flyer. Vigilance. And it gives you hexproof. Amazing. Right there, if you stop the card right there, still a lot of people would play it, but they kept going. It says, whenever it's dealt damage, you gain that much life. So, if you have some way to give it indestructible, you can really reap the benefits of that life gain there. It's a great flyer. Get over the top. And if you can make it stronger, almost nobody's going to swing on you. So, that's pretty cool. Kind of like that 4-drop. Whenever this is dealt damage, deal it to another. I forget what it is, but it's 4 planes. It's like close to that. It's also flying. It's not comparable as far as power and toughness. But with everything else, that's pretty strong, right? Like, as soon as you play this, if they're trying to target you for stuff, not happening, right? So that's kind of cool. Spark Rupture, 3-drop. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Each Planeswalker with 1 or more loyalty counters on it loses all abilities and is a creature with power and toughness equal to the loyalty counters. So, kind of like Elspeth's equipment sword, but without any of the good stuff. And it's not even close to that sword. Tazri Stalwart Survivor, 3-drop, 3/3. Each creature has tap, add 1 mana of its colors. Spend mana only to activate an ability of a creature. Activate only if this creature has another activated ability. So kind of specific, right? You have to have creatures with activated abilities, and the mana they could produce only goes towards that. But it has a Wooburg tap, mill 5. Put all creature cards with activated abilities that aren't mana abilities from among the mill cards into your hand. So even with all of that stuff that you're hoping to get out of this is only giving you cards into your hand. Nobody's playing that. So far, only Coppercoat and Metropolis are the ones that people have been playing that I've seen. And again, I'm in Diamond right now, free-to-play player, so I can't speak for anything in Mythic currently, but just haven't seen any of those. 4-drop, 2/5 Vigilance. Whenever Harness Snubborn deals combat damage to a player, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. There's some value in that. But a 4-drop, 2/5. I mean, it's got Vigilance. It might be playable. I haven't seen anybody play it. Reckless Handling, 2-drop sorcery. Search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle, then discard a card at random. If an artifact was discarded this way, deals 2 damage to each opponent. Very specific. I don't think anybody's going to play it. I haven't seen it. Arnie Metalbrow, 3-drop, 3/3. Whenever a creature you control attacks or a creature enters the battlefield under your control attacking, you may pay 1 red, 1 colorless. If you do, you may put a creature card with mana value less than that creature's mana value from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So I feel like this is one of those, if you have a lot of mana late game and you're able to get something whenever a creature you control attacks or a creature enters the battlefield attacking, you may pay. So if you get something out and you can pay that cost and send something else out, tapped and attacking. Let's see, if you do, you may put a creature card mana less of it, tapped and attacking. So you can keep doing that, is what it's saying. So like if you have a bunch of mana open and you play something, you could just keep kind of throwing stuff out, which is cool, right? But what are the other? It also says you may put, right? That's a very key word in Magic. You want to be aware of when a card says put, right? Play is to cast. Put means I'm just putting it on the battlefield. You may not counter that. You just can't, right? Because you never cast it, so you just can't be countered. So that's something to keep in mind whenever you see a card that says that. I've used many a Timmy decks where you cheat stuff out onto the battlefield that way. And when you put something on the battlefield, it's very different. So keep in mind that's a very strong thing. But again, haven't seen anybody playing that. So Kolgan Warmonger, 3-drop, 3/2 haste. When it attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You can reveal a dragon from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. There's Invasion of Tarkir. There's plenty of dragons that utilize spells. This is a cool little haste 3/2 that might help you refill your hand. So I think that's playable. Haven't seen anybody play it. Plarg and Nasari. Beginning of your upkeep, this is a 5-drop 5/4. Each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land. An opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way, and you may cast up to 2 spells from among the cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. That's interesting. Each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land. An opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the other cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. Okay. I mean, 5-drop, 5/4 to kind of fetch from the tops of the libraries. I mean, at this point, is it pay without you may cast up to 2 spells from one of the cards without paying their mana costs? It is. So that might be playable. You're probably going to see some crazy deck with that because of all the Atalis and just insane drops of cards that you just don't want to see. You probably see Atraxa, you probably see a whole bunch of stuff. So that might be playable. 2-drop, 1/3. This is specific, Plains and Island. Goldforge Thopterix. Flying lifelink. Each legendary permanent you control has ward 2. I have a feeling you'll find that in the legendary deck, even though it is not a legendary. That seems pretty like a huge value add to put into it, but I don't play that deck, so maybe there's something I'm not looking at that they would be seeing in that. Feast of the Victorious Dead. I've seen this in some decks. At the beginning of your end step, if one or more creatures died this turn, you gain that much life and distribute that many +1/+1 counters among creatures you control. That seems pretty good. For a 2-drop enchantment, that's easy to get out. It's Orzhov, so Swamp Plains, but there's plenty of decks using that. So that's playable, and I have seen it. Jurina, Dauntless General. Same mana cost. This one's a 2/2 creature, though. Legendary. Enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. You could sacrifice it, and humans you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So add that with the humans that we talked about previously, and that'll be a 3/2 with ward 1. Turn 3 after you play the other one. That's pretty cool. I think that'll be playable. I just haven't seen it yet. The Kenris Royal Funeral, 4-drop Orzhov and 2 colorless. When enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target legendary creature cards from your graveyard. Draw X cards, lose X life. X is the greatest mana value among cards exiled this way. Legendary spells cost 1 less to cast for each card exiled with this. That I feel like is most certainly going to be in the legendary deck that you'll see. It's 5-color Wooburg legendary deck. That that I've seen it. You're probably going to see more of it once people really figure out how to use it. Haven't seen any of this card yet, but I imagine it'll be useful. It seems really strong right now, but you got to know how to play it. It's a 3-drop 2/4. Dragon spells cost 1 less to cast, so again, there's a dragon deck potential in this. You may have Sharkan Soul of Flame become a copy of it until end of turn, except it's a legendary in addition to its other types. So that's kind of cool. You get some big dragons out, copy it. I'm pretty sure that's always been this Planeswalker's theme. And as you can tell, a lot of these Planeswalkers are now just regular creatures. That's kind of falling in line with the lore. A lot of them kind of lost that ability. So you'll see them as just normal creatures. That's kind of what's happening. I'm not big on following the lore, but I've seen some articles talking about it. So it looks like that's kind of what happened. Nahiri's super pissed, and there's kind of like this drama going on amongst the Planeswalkers. Some of them were bad, and now they're back to normal, and they're just not having a good time. Obnixilis Captive Kingpin, 4-drop Rakdos for and 2 others for the CMC. Flying Trample, 4/3. Whenever one or more opponents each lose exactly 1 life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Exile top card of your library until your next end step. You may play that card. So until the next end step, that's key. Anything that does that, I find very useful because it's exile. It's not in your hand. It can't be milled. It's not in your graveyard, so it can't really be targeted by pretty much any card in Magic. I'm sure there are some, but that's really strong because that's why I have Facebreaker in there, right? I crack open those treasure tokens, and now I've got like a whole another sub hand that I can use. Now that's just till the end of turn. In some of my decks that I have that I use in actual tabletop Magic, I do have cards that exile until the end of the next turn. That's Commune with Lava, great card. I'll make a video about the decks that I have in person one of these days. But those are really good abilities. So I haven't seen this, but for a 4-drop Flying Trample 4/3, the ability is not that great. But if you can find a way to make it work, I'm sure that'll be good. Summon Visor of Noctamun, 3-drop 2/3. First strike Vigilance Haste. That's nuts. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, if that creature entered the battlefield this turn, draw a card. So if you're throwing down hasty, just creatures getting in there, you might throw that in like a dinosaur deck, Gruul Dinosaur, Ramp Dinosaur kind of thing. That would be huge. Excuse me. PNLR, Council of Revival. This is a Boros 2/3, legendary creature human. Thopters you control have haste. Whenever you play a land card from exile or cast a spell from exile, create a 1/1 Thopter with flying. It's colorless, of course. It could be useful. I mean, pair that with what I'm doing, Facebreaker, and you got something cool going on. Campus Renovation, 5-drop. Boros and 3 colorless. Return up to 1 target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. For 5. Nobody's going to play that. Exile top 2 cards of your library until the end of the turn. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. There's a little bit more value there, but that's pretty specific. Nahiri's Resolve, 5-drop. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and haste. At the beginning of your end step, exile any number of non-token artifacts or creatures you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of your next upkeep. So that'll happen over and over. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and haste. Cool. So you play stuff, they go. At the end step, exile as many as you want. Return to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of your next upkeep. That might be playable. The reason I say that might be playable is because exile any number of non-token artifacts and or creatures you control. So I'm sure there's some sort of artifact that people are using that targets things, and certainly there are creatures that have ETBs that do a lot of stuff. Being able to pick and choose which ones is fascinating. That might even be borderline mythic rare, but they made it a rare. That's so close. I think it. I mean, for 5, let's go. I think they did well by making that a rare. But return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of your next upkeep. So I do my stuff, my end step, I decide what goes away. If you can remove the enchantment, then they're gone, right? They're not coming back, I don't think. Because if that's not on the battlefield, they don't come back. So there is some weakness to it. But as long as you're picking and choosing, that's going to mess with your opponent being like, do I board wipe? Because they're just going to keep doing that. And I can't board wipe on their turn unless you use like a Silex or something, which is very specific. There's only so many of those, and you don't see them in decks a lot. So I think you will see Nahiri's Resolve. Could I use that in my deck? It's Boros. I mean, what would I want to blink in? I have a lot of +1/+1 counters, so I don't want anything to leave. Maybe I'd want Sun Gold, right? Keep exiling that graveyard, but that's not an efficient way to do it, and it's all... You never build a deck off one card. So there would be no reason for me to put it in, but I do think people will play that card. There's a lot of value there. Nahiri, Forged in Fury, 6-drop, Boros 4 others, 5/4, Affinity for equipment. If you don't know what Affinity means, basically that card's going to be colorless... Oh, it's right there. It's going to be colorless mana, cheaper for each equipment that you control. So the more equipment you have out, that's going to stay out there unless they specifically remove it, right? If you get rid of a creature with an aura on it, the aura goes to the graveyard, the creature does too. Or where, you know, aura goes to the graveyard and creature's exiled, however you get rid of it. But equipment stays on the battlefield. So equipments are very resilient and very good to play. Whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, exile top card of your library. You may play that card this turn, and equipment costs 0. So you... that's pretty good. Whenever you attack, so you don't have to deal damage, it's very easy to get that to go. Exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn, whatever it is, and if it's equipment, you play it for free. That's so solid. Calyx, Guided by Fate. I haven't seen anybody play that in here yet, but I imagine you will see that. Alright, Calyx, Guided by Fate, 3-drop, 2/2, Constellation. Now, keep in mind, this is a legendary enchantment creature, human druid. Nuts. Okay? So the humans, it's in all kinds of decks. Out of all of the jumpstart cards, this is the one I see the most, and it's pretty tough. I have to find a way to get rid of it. So this is cool, because if he or another enchantment enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So that's crazy. There's plenty of enchantments that enter and you draw a card and all kinds of stuff. Whenever Calyx or an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player. Alright. That's so many things. It's so many things that is just ridiculous. Create a token that's a copy of a non-legendary enchantment you control. What? That's disgusting. So, like, okay, for example, let's say you're overloading the board state, and you've got, you know, some enchantments on creatures kind of deal, and you spread it out, right? So you enchant a creature that's not Calyx, so you've got 2 things going in that could activate this. If one of them hits, and you've got the... Oh, shoot, I forget what it's called. It's 2-drop, 1 colorless, 1 white, enchant a land, Ossification, I think it's Ossification. Exile target planeswalker or creature, I think it is. That's pretty nuts, right? You just copy that and you remove a problem. And next turn you do it again, making your opponent have to respond to that board wipe or whatever. And if you find a way to give them indestructible, bye. You know? I mean, that's easy enough. I have Lauren's Escape right here. It's a 1-drop, scry 1, indestructible, and hexproof. It's amazing as a 1-drop. I don't know why that's a common. But there's so many more other options out there that can give indestructible. That card is easily going to be in the Mythic sets. Like, people playing Mythic, like, all the time. It absolutely deserves to be a Mythic. You're going to see that all the time as you climb. So get ready for that one. Cosmic Rebirth, 3-drop, Selesnya 1. Choose target permanent card in your graveyard. If it has a mana value 3 or less, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put it onto the battlefield, put it in your hand and you gain 3 life. Instant. I mean, it's good to get Calyx back out. Like, there you go. Danitha New Benalia's Light, 3-drop, Selesnya and 1 other, 2/2, Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an aura or equipment spell from your graveyard. Right away. Naya equipment. So we're going mountain, forest, plains, equipment deck around that. and you put her in there, you put Nahiri in there. Disgusting. Goodbye. Right? Put Guardian of New Benalia in there, so you can do the Scry 2, and there's just so much. That's disgusting. In fact, I should probably do a draft of Jumpstart just to kind of get some of these, because they're definitely going to be playable. Sigarda, Font of Blessings, this is playable, right? Flying, other permanents you control of hexproof. What? That's so good, right? You put that in with the angel that gives you hexproof. What are they going to target? And then you just got to protect Sigarda. Very strong 4/4 flyer. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast angel spells and human spells from the top of your library. Oh, okay. Like we talked about playing stuff from other zones. That's insane. That's so good. It's too good. I love Sigarda though, so smash. Smash. Alright, Rebuild the City. That's a 6-drop. We got Swamp, we got Forest, we got Mountain. Choose target land. Create 3 tokens that are copies of it, except they are 3/3 creatures in addition to their other types, and they have Vigilance and Menace. It's still affected by Summoning Sickness. That's kind of cool. I mean, I don't know why it's a rare, though, for a 6-drop sorcery. So no instant speed, none of that. All that ramp, too. Like, there's so many cards that are late game. To have that late game of a ramp, like, can really push you into that far game. Like, I don't know. I don't think anybody's gonna play it, but I like the idea behind it. Rocco, Street Chef. This is for Naya. That's Mountain Forest Plains. Beginning of your end step, each player exiles top card of their library. Until your next end step, each player may play the card they exiled this way. I don't like the whole help your opponent beat you, like play you kind of thing. Really messes up your strategy, so I'm not about that. Whenever a player plays a land from exile or casts a spell from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and create a food token. That's weird. I don't think it's playable. Narset, very popular planeswalker in some of the sets back in the day. Enlightened Exile. This is a American. I think they call that Jeskai. And 1, that's 3/4. Creatures you control have prowess. Whenever Narset Enlightened Exile attacks, exile target non-creature, non-land card with mana value less than Narset's power from a graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Exile target non-creature, non-land card. There's still plenty of stuff, right? Like, I mean, if you found a way to do, okay, kind of like, instead of Danitha and New Benalia's Light, you could use Narset and Nahiri, create a human, Jeskai equipment deck, and that'll help you get equipments out. That's cool. What is this? That allows you to play stuff from your graveyard. That's pretty late. I think you'd probably be better off doing a Narset Nahiri kind of thing. Niv-Mizzet Supreme Wooburg. That's 1 of each color. 5/5 flank hexproof from monocolored. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard that's exactly 2 colors has Jumpstart. Jumpstart says you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card and in addition to paying its other costs. Then exile the card. That's cool. Kind of like that. Karn Legacy Reforged. Looks like he's got a new rebuilt arm there. 5-drop. Star. Let's see. Its power and toughness equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. So he's a 5/5 if you just play him. At the beginning of your upkeep, add colorless mana for each artifact you control. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells until end of turn. You don't lose mana as steps and phases end. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana. Alright, so you don't lose the colorless mana. Alright, so that's definitely only an artifact deck that you would see that. And then we got a land here. Draneth Ruins. Tap, add colorless to colorless tap. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target non-human creature that entered the battlefield this turn. So I can't use it in my deck. They're pretty much all humans. Yeah, I think they're all humans except for the angel. Yeah. So, lot of great stuff. Plenty of cards that you can use in your deck. I thought it was 50 cards, and that was only 31. Um, I'll have to check Mythic Spoiler and see if there's any that I'm missing. But those are the ones that it shows in the ones that I have collected, not collected in March of the Machine Aftermath. As you see, that's what the filter says there. So, oh, you know what? I see what happened here. I didn't select all the colors, so that's why we only saw 31. So let me go ahead and select the other ones there. Okay, so that should bring up the other cards. We'll just go ahead and fill in the gaps. Alright, so Training Grounds. This is a great one-drop. Activated abilities of creatures you control cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana that is less than 1. So, pretty strong for a one-drop blue enchantment. Blue doesn't really do anything turn 1. So, that's a really good thing to play turn 1. I've seen some people play that. Filter out. This is cool. Return all non-creature, non-land permanents to their owner's hands. For 2 blue and 1 colorless. I haven't seen anybody play it, but I suspect people will. Vesuvian Drifter, 3 drop, 1 blue, 2 colorless. That's flying 2/4. Look at the top card of your library at any time. At the beginning of each combat, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you reveal a creature card, it becomes a copy of that card until end of turn, except it has flying. I suspect you will see plenty of this because people use Atraxa, people use Itali. And so to have it become a copy, imagine turn 4, or maybe you put this in a Simic deck so that you can turn 3 do what it says. At the beginning of each combat, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you reveal your card, let's say you reveal Itali, okay? It's got flying. You swing over for that, turn 3. That's nuts. You're absolutely gonna see this card, and you know, props to people that figure out how to use it really well. I imagine that's gonna get legacy play too. That's nuts. Tolarian Contempt. This is a 5-drop, 2 blue, 3 colorless. When Tolarian Contempt enters the battlefield, put a rejection counter on each creature your opponents control. At the beginning of your end step, for each opponent, choose up to 1 target creature they control with a rejection counter on it. That creature's owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Ooh. When it enters the battlefield, so if you have a way to blink this, like exile it, bring it back, that's pretty cool. You can kind of pace your opponent on what they put out, on like everything that they put out. So that card alone you can build. You're not supposed to build around one card, but that card alone has the idea that you want to build around. Areas Oathsworn. I have seen this in standard ranked. 2-drop, 2/2 Menace. It's a swamp and 1 colorless. When it deals combat damage to a player, if it has fewer than 4 +1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then if it has exactly 4, you may search your library for a card, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. So if you mix that with Hopeful Initiate, kind of have like a Orzhov +1/+1 counter kind of thing going on. They're both humans, so again, you could throw in that human card that gives ward and +1/+0 to the other ones. Kind of really get some value there. Maybe mix in like a training aspect, so you're constantly getting +1/+1 counters. That's really strong. You could remove them and then keep fetching your deck for a card that you need. I suspect more people will play this card. Blot Out. This is 2 colorless, 1 black. Target opponent exiles a creature or a planeswalker they control with the greatest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. It's a 3-drop instant, so that's great. People are probably going to play that card. Do it instant speed on my turn, right after I play something strong. Very good early game, late game, every game. Like, that's good. Markov Baron, 3-drop, 1 swamp, 2 colorless, 2/2. It's Convoke, right? So you can get it for 1 if you've got a board state and save your mana. Lifelink, other vampires get +1/+1. and it has madness. So if you discard it, you can play it for its madness cost instead, which is typically when you see it madness cost, like you've seen them like extremely cheap because you have to have some way to discard them. This one is just the same, but at least it's not worse, right? So 2 colorless, 1 swamp. I think that's pretty good. Urbog Scavengers. This is same cost, 2 colorless, 1 swamp, 2/2. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile target card from a graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. It has the ability. It's like that sword. It has flying as long as a card is exiled with flying. It has the same for first strike, double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. It can be a very strong card. Don't sleep on that one. Some people are using it. Death Rattle Oni, 7-drop, 1 swamp, 6 other, flash, 5/4. Costs 2 less to cast colorless for each creature that died this turn. When it enters the battlefield, destroy all other creatures that were dealt damage this turn. That's kind of neat. The other ones we've talked to, Animus Might. This one's kind of cool. 2 colorless, 1 green. That's 1 forest. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a legendary creature you control. Target creature you control deals damage equal to twice its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. So that's cool. They're not fighting. It's just taking the damage, doubling it, and hitting something. Sorcery speed, though, so kind of slow. Nisa Resurgent Animus, 2 colorless, 1 forest. Landfall. It's a 3/3. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of any color. Then, if it's the second time this ability has resolved this turn, reveal cards to the top of your library until you reveal an elf or elemental card. Put that card in your hand, and then the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I think it's, what is it? Llanowar elves. What is it? The set of elves. It might be Llanowar. I don't know. I might be saying that wrong, but it looks like they might be taking the set back to that plane. It was in the same article I read that I was referencing from the last stuff I talked about. But that might be turning into a very powerful card. Tranquil Frillback, 2 colorless, 1 forest, 3/3. When Tranquil Frillback enters the battlefield, you may pay forest up to 3 times. When you pay this cost, you would choose up to that many. So I don't think you can pay 6 green mana and do everything twice. I think you can go up to all of the options, and you can't do double of one of the options. You can just do all 3, 1 or 2 of them, or you know what I mean. Destroy target artifact or enchantment, exile player's graveyard, gain 4 life. All of those are viable. I think this might be playable. Undercity Upheaval, 2 forest, 1 colorless, undergrowth. Distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard as you cast it. Creatures you control gain vigilance until end of turn. It's a sorcery speed, so I don't think anybody's going to play that. Leyline Immersion, 3 colorless, 1 forest. Enchantment. Enchant legendary creature only. Creature has ward 2 and tap, add 5 mana in any combination of colors. Spend it only to cast spells. So you can't do abilities, but all those Wooburg cards, you could play with that. So I'd imagine you'll see that in the Legacy deck, because it's enchant legendary creature. They need all 5 mana. You're most likely going to see that. Open the Way, X and 2 forest. X can't be greater than the number of players in the game. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X land cards. Put the land cards on the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. It's kind of neat. We talked about those. We talked about that one. Tyvar, the Bellicose. This is swamp, forest, 2 others. When 1 or more elves you control attack, they gain death touch until end of turn. Each creature you control has whatever a mana ability of this creature resolves. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana this creature produced. This ability only triggers once each turn. That's still strong. 5/4 for 4. I think you'll see that. I think a lot of elf decks are coming around the corner here. Joel Rail, voice of Zolfer. Human Druid, 3/3. Beginning of combat on your turn, up to one target land you control becomes an XX green and blue bird creature with flying. It's haste, where X is the number of cards in your hand. It's still a land. Okay. Whenever land creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. There's some other cards that make your lands creatures, so that might be playable. I haven't seen it yet, though. Kiora, Sovereign of the Deep. 3 colorless, forest and island. Vigilance ward 3/4/5. That's pretty strong already. Whenever you cast a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent spell from your hand, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the spell's mana value. You may cast a spell with mana value less than X from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Normally, people will say converted mana cost, so X is that spell's mana value. That may help you with anything that has like an X in its mana cost, where you kind of pick the cost, because if I have a spell like Fireball, it's 1 mountain and X. The CMC of that card, I believe, is 1, because X can be 0. So if you were to search cards for based on CMC 1, I'm pretty sure you'd find Fireball for that reason. But this is saying, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's mana value. So if for whatever reason there's a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent that has like an X in its mana value, then I think that it makes it greater. Like you may cast a spell with mana value less than X, so whatever that is. So that's pretty specific, but that's something that jumps out to me when I read that card. And let's just put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So, I mean, it's Kiora. I figure a lot of people, there's a fan base behind the merfolk, so you'll probably see that somewhere. We talked about those. We did not talk about Nashi, Moon's Legacy. This is Swamp Forest Island. Menace Ward 1/3/4. When it attacks, exile up to one target legendary or rat card from your graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy. You still pay its cost. A copy of the permanent spell becomes a token. So there was like this rat toxic deck going on. Maybe somebody will turn that into that. I don't know. We talked about that. And that's the rest of them. All right. Had to add that in there. Sorry I missed those. But that should be all the cards. Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Which cards you think are the best, maybe the ones that you're thinking of putting in your deck. I've shared my thoughts. So as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, deckheads, keep it easy.